think that comedy is really important right now too, because it's such a crazy time in our world and people need to laugh. They need to. I think that there's definitely a groundswell of people who don't want to laugh and they think it's not funny to talk about certain subjects, or there's nothing funny about it, but there is humor everywhere and we need it.
In this episode, we're talking with the president and current CEO of All Things Comedy, Mike Bertolina. Before joining All Things Comedy, Mike was the vice president of client development at Branded Entertainment Network. Mike has executed integration campaigns for clients such as Microsoft, General Motors, Zillow, and Dyson, as well as 16 other strategic digital video campaigns. As president of All Things Comedy, Mike spearheads strategies to enable comedians to own and brand their personal IPs.
This is Creative Disruption, the intersection where entertainment, data, and creativity meet. Here's your hosts, Ricky Ray Butler and Derral.
Welcome back to the Creative Disruption podcast, where we talk about everything that is disrupting the industry, and we're talking with creators that's causing that disruption. And I'm joined here by Ricky Ray. How you doing, Ricky?
I'm doing fantastic.
I'm good. I got a question for you, Ricky.
Sure.
How many streaming subscriptions do you actually pay a month?
Wow.
Start adding them up here.
So let me count.
Okay.
And I'll just list them off.
All right.
Netflix, Amazon,
okay,
HBO through Amazon,
okay,
Showtime through Amazon. So which like just
right.
a little bit. Hulu, and then CBS All Access.
Star Trek's great on that, by the way.
I don't watch Star Trek.
What?
No, I watch.
You do D&D, but you don't do Star Trek.
Hey. I do Big Brother and like Survivor. Like I'm still caught up in that mess.
You're one of those guys. Okay.
Okay, I'm not done.
Okay, keep going.
I'm at YouTube Premium, right?
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. CBS All Access. No, you cut me off. So at least I would probably say, and then you can count Spotify, so like probably 7.
7. Okay,
yeah.
and if you're taking like
we have an Audible too, so like that's 8.
8. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're cut the cord, I mean you're paying a lot more than you were with cable, right? Or where were you at with that?
Potentially, we never had cable ever since I got married. I never had cable. It just never made sense. We always figured out how to stream things online.
Yeah,
and so it all started with Hulu.
Hulu and Netflix for me, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Apple just introduced their platform. Mm-hmm. They kind of announced it to the world. Everyone knew it was coming. They didn't know the price, but the price is $4.99. Like, what is going to happen with that? And I know that there's a lot of great creators that have signed deals with Apple, and Apple has a bajillion dollars in the bank, and bajillion is a word. I want you to know it is a word. It's just a lot of money, and it's in the bank waiting to do something. Do you think this is going to disrupt the industry?
Not the price. Absolutely not. I think they still have to do a lot of testing. They have to prove their model, and they have to prove to the consumers that their content is superior and that it's really good.
See, I think we're heading for a bubble. I really do. I think we're heading for a bubble because you have Disney Plus that's coming out, and it's going to really draw in. Like
there's going to be a bubble, but it's not going to force a bundle. No, I actually think things are going to become even more diverse and more decentralized. I think our next wave is going to be micro or niche SVODs.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. But like for me, I'm like, oh, I don't want to go with Disney. I don't want to. Then they're like, oh, by the way, we got a couple new Star Wars TV series that we're putting out, like The Mandalorian. I'm like, I saw the trailer. And I'm like, I am going to get that now just because of that stupid trailer.
Well, there's such a demand for content, even though there's such a big supply.
Yeah,
I still don't have enough. I need to binge more. And right now, like we're watching like 3 different shows. And I know
Big Brother, Big Brother 2.
We're putting Big Brother on hold until we get done with a couple others.
Oh, okay.
And after I get through that list, I know there's going to be a period of time where there's going to be about like 2 to 3 months where I'm not going to have anything to watch that's binge worthy.
Yeah.
And so I still think we're at the beginning. That's just based off of my sample, but I think the reason why all these different platforms are starting and growing because they're all seeing some type of success. Right. I mean, we're talking about Netflix and Amazon, but we have to also remember, Philo. We have to remember all the more.
I forgot about Philo.
Yeah, there's Philo. There's Sling. Like there's a lot of different platforms out there. They're on the rise. One thing that I think is really interesting is a specific vertical that seems like it's dominating all the different platforms.
Which one's that?
Comedy.
Oh,
well, think about it.
No, seriously.
So if you look at the podcast world, the podcasts that are doing the best are the comedians.
Absolutely.
And then you're seeing them create content. When it comes to Instagram, they're all getting Netflix specials or Amazon Prime specials.
And some people are like doing their own stuff and making $30 million.
Why do you think comedians are being successful?
Well, because entertainment is what people are looking for. That's one of the outlets of where they find value. And of course, that would be the case.
I think it's because they can entertain better than most. If you think about it,
well,
anyone that can do stand-up comedy can act.
Right.
They can produce.
And
they're a jack of all trades. And so when you have like this more organic content when it comes to podcasts or vlogs, it's going to be the comedians that are going to entertain people the most and get the most followers.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them still have a ways to go, especially when it comes to like, let's say TikTok or Instagram. I mean, there's going to be even a bigger explosion of comedians, I believe.
I agree. I just with the medium, I agree that, it's going to just facilitate more and more comedians to get exposure and get in front of new audiences and grow from there. But I do look at some of the older comedians and I look at some of the things that they're doing on like Jerry Seinfeld's series on Netflix is like off the charts. Mm-hmm. It's really, really good. And
there'll probably be a micro SVOD around comedy.
Exactly.
Well, we already know there's dry bar comedy that's like exploding. Right. But there's going to be, there's a lot of comedy out there that maybe isn't relevant to dry bar where they're going to have their own platform for, and people are probably going to tune in and subscribe.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's probably going to be a horror film SVOD. there probably is. Like, think about it.
Almost every isn't that called Full Moon already? They already have one of those, something like that.
We know that. You have what was it called? Crunchyroll, the SVOD for anime.
Yeah,
I think we're just going to see more and more of those, and it's going to be through acquisitions where we haven't seen the big acquisitions yet. So before there's a bubble, I think there's going to be a bunch of big acquisitions.
We have. I think
we're going to see more.
I think we have. I disagree with you. I think we've seen the acquisitions, but it's in content. It's owning IP. It's like when Disney said, "Look, we're going to buy all of Fox."
Yeah,
like that. That right there is a massive deal. Now that's the first stage is like owning the IP because if you put it out there and people are consuming it, from different platforms and different distribution. But if you want to own it and start eating up everything else, I think it's going to come down to, be honest with you, Disney. And I think Apple and Amazon have the strategy.
I think Google, AT&T, people bigger than Disney are going to be making bigger acquisitions.
I have a hard time with Google. I'll be honest with you. It's just like even being like YouTube Premium has changed as YouTube Red and all this other stuff. They just can't figure it out. The only series that ever
they
did
shouldn't
anything.
do it themselves. They should acquire.
Yeah,
and then they should build on what they're.
But the only series that even did anything was Cobra Kai, and I loved it.
Sure,
but that was like a one-hit wonder.
Yeah, but I'm not saying Google acquiring content. I'm saying acquiring one of these major platforms and then making it so it's even better. And
do you think the federal government will allow them to do that? I mean, there's like antitrust,
absolutely
antitrust stuff that's going on.
If Google acquires a Netflix, that's not going to be that big of a deal.
Yeah,
well, it's going to be a big deal, but it's not going to be a huge.
I'll buy stock before that happens. If you hear anything
to the federal government, but I think there's going to need to be bigger acquisitions before there's a bubble burst. Also, I think there needs to be another disruptive model in order to force it to burst. Like, for example, we've talked a lot about this. I believe blockchain 100% is going to disrupt the SVOD model.
Yeah.
People are going to want to start funding content and investing in it through a blockchain. Where like a J.J. Abrams or a Christopher Nolan can come out and say, hey, I want to do Star Wars my way or some superhero movie or series my way. Come here, be a part of, this. Instead of, donating to get a free t-shirt, donate, invest, and you get a percentage of the profits once it gets bigger.
100%. I think we both agree on that.
And
sure.
so maybe there's gonna be a couple bubbles where things burst, but I think we have a lot more innovation that needs to come in order to make it so this SVOD model that we're seeing across the board is irrelevant, and it has to be through new technology and a new way that consumers want to consume content.
Yeah, and I think the portability of it too. It's just like people, expect it to be portable and go on. And I think you're right. And I think this introduces our guest pretty solid in the sense of comedy, but it's like people they want quick dips into the internet and they want what they want. And sometimes it's just to be entertained. Sometimes it's just to laugh. Sometimes it's to engage in a certain way. And the easier it is for them to do that, the more frequent they're going to do it. And it's what Google calls micro moments. And that happens consistently with these younger generations. Now, the older generations, they'll do it their own way. They like schedules, and all that other stuff. But, there's a lot of people that are just right into it. They're waiting for a bus or they're on a, subway going somewhere and they just want a quick dip into it. And I think that's where the future is going to be. And I think a lot of it's going to be in comedy because that's probably the most disruptive forms of entertainment. There's always a controversy going on about some comedian saying something
every freaking week, especially the last couple of months.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and segue. Yeah. We want to introduce our guest.
So we have today someone that's really close to my heart, and his name is Mike Bertolina, or was it Michael Bertolina?
Oh, Mike's fine.
Okay, Mike, is Mike okay?
This is
Mike?
The best introduction. These are really close to my heart. Is it Mike or Michael?
Hey, well, with that said, Mike and I, we've known each other for a while. He actually used to work at Ben.
Okay, so worked here.
Yeah, so he used to work here. And he's done amazing things since he left. We were all really pissed off when he left.
Mike,
you were nice.
I was nice about it, but I kind of told him, like, you're making a stupid mistake. but today, he's the president of All Things Comedy, which is a company that's owned by Bill Burr. And you work very closely with Bill Burr around all of his initiatives.
That's right.
You want to tell us a little more about All Things Comedy?
Sure. And first of all,
yes,
so many things. I agree with so many things that you guys were saying in that banter. I'm biting my lip to not jump in on that. So maybe we can circle back to some of those subjects in this conversation because you guys covered some good ground there.
Yeah, we're here to geek out.
I love it.
Sure.
Yes. So I run All Things Comedy. It's a really interesting company. We started as a podcast network that was owned and operated by the comedians themselves because comics are a group of people that are, as you point out, they are prolific. They're creating content every which way they can. They're most comfortable with the mic in their hand and being on stage as writers and producers and creators of their own content every day. And we wanted to create something that the comedians could own and support one another and allow them to protect their IP and exploit it themselves. So it started as really a co-op of comedians that wanted to own their audience, grow their audience, and help one another in that path. Over the last couple of years,
that alone is disruptive. I mean, sure. What has been done, over the course of years, that's just super disruptive.
Yeah. Well, we saw a trend going in the industry. Sorry, I'm away from the mic. Going in the industry where a lot of companies were hopping in that were looking to take over a lot of that IP. And these guys were independent operators that really just wanted to connect with their audience and engage with them because they're out to sell tickets. In the end, they want to go from working clubs to working small theaters to big theaters to arenas, right? And a podcast is a great way to engage with their fans directly, get them knowing who they are so that they're invested in their material, right? We wanted to pull back from that trend and allow the comics to just take control of their own content. And not only that, but take control of their own company. So that's really what we started out as. But over the last couple of years, we've really expanded into a lot of different directions. As we've started to invest in the company itself and building out our own brand, we've started to hit all the other touch points in a comic's career, whether that's video content, web series, stand-up specials, TV shows, live events.
So you're creating like this network. It's not like an MCN, but it's like where they're able to come in and be a part of something. And then there's all these different facets that they can utilize for them and their business. Right?
I liken us to, we work really closely with talent management companies. Talent managers are people who partner with a comic on their career and help them build that career.
Right.
We start with the same goals and we just build that around content. And what is the content that you want to make that's going to help you hit those goals? And then when we do that, we create those things in partnership with them. So smart. We're part production company, part network, part clubhouse.
Yeah. No, I love it. So dealing with these comedians, and I've worked with quite a few share of comedians, and I found that some are bipolar. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But it's just
still a euphemism, even though it's still loaded. Yeah.
But there's a lot of intensity. Yeah. But what I've noticed is the best ones that I've seen, they're really good at reading audiences and they know how to perform to an audience. How are you using data to give the comedians that pulse of what's working, what's not.
I think the thing, and this also depends on the vehicle or the media that we're working in,
right?
But when it comes to, say, digital video content, we have a lot of web series that we produce and distribute right now. We're really looking for engagement. That's the big thing. I mean, views are great. Views are a great thing to gauge,
right.
You know, that is the size of your audience any given time. But we look for, you know, like to dislike ratio, the amount of comments and conversations. Well, I have a very talented guy on my team named Russell Weissman, who is our audience development guy. And he's very focused on those things. And we work with the comics on identifying that data, going into that data and saying, what different things do we do around the format that's going to create more engagement or create more excitement and buzz, you know, or just help you boost your way into the algorithm if it's on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you get into comedy? Because I know before coming to Ben, you know, you were a prop master, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
You came here and you were just amazing integration expert and knew everything about content.
Yeah.
Very connected in Hollywood. And then, you know, you ended up, you know, teaming up with Bill Burr and the All Things Comedy team. How did you make those connections?
This is a very odd story, and it's one of those things you don't really plan for.
It sounds like a bit that you're in.
Well, no, it's not really. So yes, I was a prop master, did that. I worked in the industry for, you know, a decade doing props. And the other partner at All Things Comedy that should be mentioned is Al Madrigal, because this guy is just an absolute machine, just a crazy, just manufacturer of ideas. He's just an idea monster. And he's been the driving force for a lot of our activity over the past, you know, 8 years since his inception as this club. Al lived 3 doors down from me. We were friends. And we connected over funny things. I mean, we both worked in the industry. We connected over that. We also connected with the fact that we're both San Franciscans and both 49er fans.
And then, far between right
and
now.
then when my segue out of props was going back to business school. I went to San Francisco for 2 years, got my MBA. When I came back to LA, I did 2 things. I started working in branded entertainment. That became like a job and a real career. And Bill and Al were starting this idea of theirs, and they pulled me in, and I helped them with a lot of things, monetization, some brand deals and things like that. But that just little engine kept growing and growing and showed it could. And then at one point we decided to go all in on it and blow the thing up. And it's been going really well. While I do miss Ben, it was a great move for me and for the company of All Things Comedy.
So let's kind of fast forward a little bit, because like I'm always interested where the pulse of where you think things are going and things that are happening. What are you the most interested in right now, technology wise, to really extend the brand of those comedians that you're working with?
That's a great question. And I mean, there's no real one answer. There's there's so many new platforms. You're talking about SVODs, micro SVODs. It's really exciting. I mean, you're going down your list of the platforms you're subscribing to, and I'm like, yep. I can tack a few more in there. ESPN Plus, sure, WWE, because my 10-year-old's crazy about it.
Right.
You know,
it's amazing how they've stayed relevant. Wrestling.
Yeah, it's
that's
wild.
A story within itself.
Yeah,
right,
without a doubt. But I think that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there. One that's really exciting is Quibi. I mean, thinking about creating a whole new subscription platform that's specifically for mobile. And when I look at what's going on in stand-up comedy and the way that comics are leveraging their sets to grow audience and create some engagement, a lot of it's around clips. It's a lot short form moments in their overall hour set.
Yeah.
That's exciting. If you look, there's more and more platforms for that. It works for us on Instagram, on YouTube. So I think that with more tools, there's just more ways for comics to engage. The thing with All Things Comedy is that we don't hold to any one strategy. We're nimble. We're always like exploiting new things as we find it. Exactly. And like I said, it really comes back to goals, to a comics goal. And in order to really target that, you can't hold on to what was working 8 weeks ago.
Right.
You know? or even 8 days ago, because there's something new today.
Exactly. It changes so fast.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of a follow-up question, but it's like, okay, so you're always looking for the next big thing or the next way to get what you're trying to achieve, whatever that finish line is for the comedian. Do you find a lot of comedians are more, okay, I don't necessarily need my special anymore. I just want to blow up online and go that direction. What are you doing to cross promote and cross pollinate between comedians? Like, do you have a strategy for that?
We do. Starting with the podcasts. Podcasts are a great way to get people connected. It's between, guesting on each other's shows and engaging with their audiences and pulling their audiences into your sphere. That's one big element of it. Right. We are a podcast network, so we do cross promote in shows as well. I think there's no better example of that than Joe Rogan. I mean, that guy has such a massive halo of influence. And once you're pulled into that, it's another launch pad for you. So even beyond, his audience is massive, but even smaller audiences are there to be connected to. And those fans really want to learn more, want to see more, hear more, and then, it's what can we partner on, other types of content that we can create. You mentioned maybe they're abandoning going after the special, which is by the way, another big trend too.
Right.
Obviously Netflix has been a big player in stand-up, and they really did disrupt this industry
100%.
in a massive way. And all the credit in the world goes to them for that. But it also created challenges, and in challenge, it created opportunities too, because there's so much there. Some comics are either they can't get the deal because Netflix is looking for bigger and bigger and bigger. So what do they turn to? And a lot of comics are looking to control it themselves, self-finance or finance in new creative ways. Andrew Schultz is a guy who went out. He's been so active on YouTube. He really has become a master of that, and he's a great thinker. And he released his full special on YouTube. On his own.
It's fantastic. It's like way back in the day, it was like, okay, if only I can get on Johnny Carson and do my stand-up routine. And you have a lot of the early comedians coming on, at least in this latter part of the
Joe
decade.
Rogan is Johnny Carson.
100%.
Johnny Carson too.
100%. And I think that's kind of the boost. But there's so many things that can get people's attention.
Yeah.
Like it's just one video. Like they're literally one video away from their next big break.
Yeah.
And it's not having to go. Yeah, it's great if you could go on Joe Rogan. They can get a lot of visibility, a lot of eyeballs. But it's just like you're one video away.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. I remember taking some time with the owners of Dry Bar Comedy, and when they were going over their strategy. And I thought it was a sound strategy. I thought it was a brilliant strategy of what they're looking to do. I couldn't comprehend the complexities of copyright and ownership of it. They solved that big issue, but it's just like pumping out views. And it's just like, it's crazy. I mean, billions and billions,
really
and billions of views.
Yeah.
And it comes back down to, it's like, you're really only one big video away of getting known.
It's so funny. I was talking to Bert Kreischer, who's also a partner at All Things Comedy. And he said something interesting to me about, there's so many amazingly talented comedians, and we want to cast a spotlight on all of them. Right. And with every new thing we do, we want to find new ways that we can show the world people that we think are funny. But there's so much luck that's involved in the game for that one video to hit, or whatever it might be. I mean,
and it could hit like 2 years late too. It's like, you never know when it's going to hit.
I mean, like Burr, I'm biased. I would say he's the greatest working comedian today. And he had a tremendous amount of luck too. I mean, if somebody wasn't rolling a camera on that rant he had in Philadelphia, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, where he turned an entire city that was completely against him, went at him hard and turned them in his favor over the course of an act. It was insane.
He should run for president of the United States there.
But that really gained a ton of audience for him.
Yeah, 100%.
So, you never know what it's going to be, but the more active you are, the more odds are you're not going to win if you don't play.
Yeah, 100%.
With your company, and again, this might be a detail that you might not be able to share. Are you guys doing any deals with Quibi right now?
We are not able to share.
Okay. Yeah. so maybe I need to be a little careful then on my next question.
We talked to Quibi a lot. I'll say that. Yeah.
Do you think, Quibi is going to be successful?
I hope so. I really do. I think that it's like what you were talking about. They haven't really pushed out any trailers or any release or anything for their shows yet. And I think that knowing what they're buying right now, they're definitely putting themselves in the driver's seat for success.
Yep.
You're right. The Mandalorian, that trailer alone. Look, I got 3 kids. I was going to be getting on Disney Plus regardless.
Because you got ESPN Plus.
But they sold me. They sold me on that one. And
Sure.
I think that when you look at the people that are doing deals there right now in the cool new formats that they have and some of the tech that they're applying to their platform that I'm sure they're going to share with everybody, it's exciting.
And you know what? This is the thing about technology, though. It's always an overpromise until you actually execute.
Yeah.
And have an audience.
Yeah.
And you can scale it and show that you're going to have something that's not buggy. I have a lot of questions, whether if they're going to be very successful or not. I hope they are.
I do too.
The more platforms we have, the better.
Yeah.
The better is for the creator and the viewers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's selfishly where I'm looking from, because I think about all these people that are going in and starting to create there. I want them to get a big audience.
Yeah.
I want Quibi to be successful, but
well, there's theories too that potentially they're just putting together a good amount of content so they can sell it. And have like a quick, acquisition.
You'll have to talk to Jeffrey about that one.
Because you have Verizon that's going to need to look for a solution.
Yeah.
You have all these major companies like AT&T.
Yeah. Well, they just bought Warner and HBO Max. I mean, that whole thing is completely changing with AT&T jumping in the mix.
Yeah. And so I think there's just so much momentum and so many things moving around.
Right.
That even if they're not successful, if they don't get a huge audience, they're going to have so much content where they'll be valuable just to get a quick acquisition.
And that's a great point. I think that when it comes down to it, the value really sits with the content. It sits with the IP.
Sure.
That's why we are not in MCN. When we go out and make things, we do partner with people on it. We invest in it and then we create it with them. So we look at our value as tying to like the more content that we're putting out there and creating.
Sure.
As well as a brand that stands for something.
I do think that we are in just on the prefaces of really taking it to the next level from technology based in the sense of, more and more people are consuming video content on their mobile phone. They'd rather watch it on their mobile phone than a 100-inch TV right in front of them. And they're getting more adjusted to it. And what I'm interested in,
biggest screen in your house, by the way.
It is 100%. You're just like right there. But what I'm interested in is where Generation Z spends their time with their eyeballs. Because like for me, it's great for hitting, older Gen X or, older millennials, and that will go only so far, but it's this next wave that's coming up. And I cannot get only to play Xbox, I think is only I can get my kids on the bigger, TV.
Right.
Everything else is just like quick, intimate, and they want it. And I think a mobile solution type platform that's a paid subscription is going to be like completely off the charts.
Sure. No, absolutely. Because TikTok is great, but TikTok is not where they're going to binge into storylines.
Exactly.
And binge into storytelling.
Well, that's where I think Quibi's good too, because they're focusing on the duration of the format. Like each Quibi is a quick bite, so each episode is essentially 10 minutes or less. So maybe you're probably right as far as kids are concerned, but even for us as adults, like
10 minutes.
Are you allowed to curse on this show? I mean, it's like what you watch when you take a shit. You know what I mean? Like that. Like that's the.
Well, you mentioned Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan clips.
Right. Exactly.
15 minutes. You just watch it and see what it's about and figure out if you want to watch the entire podcast or not.
Right. That's right.
No, I think
so back to like the big screen, saying your kids will never get on the big screen unless it's like.
I think will, but they'd rather have their own personal device.
With my 3-year-old, we decided not to let her just have the iPad and watch it. Like,
good.
We actually have everything like on YouTube Kids or like Netflix Kids on the big screen.
You're a good parent.
Well, no,
I support it.
I never would have thought that I would have encouraged my kids to watch TV on a big screen.
Yeah.
I would have always thought, okay, let's get them to go outside. But like when they're not being active and they want to watch, content, we've decided to make it be on the big screen where it can be a little more controlled.
I love it.
Because there's all those rabbit holes out there.
I love that you're saying that. So I've got 3 kids. We do limit screen time in our house as well. I mean, I want them to be outside and play. I want them to read books as well. But I look at, if you're going to be watching a movie or a TV show, it's not just about the size of the format. It's about a communal experience too.
Sure.
I like
100%.
us as a family to sit down and
That's
enjoy
great.
that film. I'm also a super film nerd.
Mhm.
So like, I like to show them movies that are important to me that I think are appropriate for them. And then
Okay.
watch that with them.
So best Star Wars film of all time is your film nerd.
Empire.
See,
I agree.
that's why I like him right there. Like, he is the very best.
What's number 2 though?
Oh, man, I would say A New Hope because
Yeah.
like it started everything off.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of The Last Jedi. I wanted to walk out. I'll be honest with you.
What'd you think of Rogue One?
I loved Rogue One. I thought that would probably be
we're
my,
friends. We're
like,
friends.
Like
We're gonna be
I think
friends.
that would probably be my number 3.
Yeah.
Like Jedi is great, and I love the components of it.
So he knows the Star Wars.
Yeah.
But when it comes to The Godfather, he likes Godfather 3 the most.
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy.
I don't know
Tom.
what you're talking about. I saw all those DVDs that you have. I don't even have a DVD player.
My wife hangs it over me.
Godfather.
My son's middle name is Santino, and it's named after Sonny from The Godfather.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which may be a little dark considering the way Sonny went out, but he was a good big brother though.
That's right. That's right. No, but that's awesome. And I love the film side of where things are going. And I think, this is one thing I love about online and communities is like, you can find people like you all around the world and you can create these little sub communities, these sub niches of that. And I think, what's driving it is the content creators that are going from it. And I do agree, like these comedians are like right at the top, right at the top because they just know how to entertain. They know how to pace. They know how to, get that
And they seem
punchline
to
where it
be
is.
getting
the
casted
storytelling.
more often now in
True.
films as well.
True.
But
That's right. I mean, if
they're
you
also
think
becoming
about
much
it,
more entrepreneurial where they can control their own content.
well, there's darkness at the edge
Good
of
trends.
comedy as well. You got to think like
Oh, yeah.
these people like toe that line so well. And I think of some of like our great dramatic actors actually started in comedy. Tom Hanks or
Like Jim Carrey,
yeah.
like his. Have you seen that documentary where he was?
yeah.
It's just like off the charts. It's like I went down a dark place,
Yeah.
and it's just like.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
think that comedy is really important right now too, because it's such a crazy time in our world and people need to laugh.
They
They
do.
need to. I think
They
that
do.
there's definitely a groundswell of people who don't want to laugh and they think it's not funny to talk about certain subjects, or there's nothing funny about it, but there is
Yeah.
humor everywhere and we need it. It's a good release for us.
I think when we needed it, because like everyone's in the news, about saying something on stage and blah blah blah. I mean, there's been some stuff with SNL and all that other stuff, but it's like,
Right.
at the end of the day, we just need to relax and
Right.
not be over sensitive and overly political.
Yep.
I mean, you look at Mel Brooks as an example. He was like very very edgy.
Yeah.
And there's all these different skits that are now today are like way inappropriate
And,
from a lot of
and I
people's
get that
perspective.
exactly. And I get that was a different time. I understand all of that.
And even
but
today, we're seeing a cultural shift. We're seeing like generational differences between
Yeah.
like Gen
100%.
Z and then
Oh,
Generation
yeah.
X.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Some
where
of
it
those
becomes a
Generation
slippery
X, yeah.
slope is when you get to, but you can't laugh about this and you can't laugh about that. You can't.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just think that is ludicrous. I think it was Sarah Silverman that said that wherever there is light, there cannot be dark. So let's have a little bit of joy in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that some things aren't funny to certain people. I understand the idea of offense, but there is a big difference between telling a joke and making a statement. And I think that's where people lose the blur.
Well-
if you read it in print as a headline, as a piece of a bit that has no context to everything else that was said, suddenly you made it a statement, but that's not at all what a
Sure.
comedian had
So
intended there.
with like all this controversy that's happening right now in the comedian world or the world of comedy, where do brands reside? Like how are brands responding to all this?
That's a
Because I'm sure
great
there are a lot
question.
of brands that are being a little uptight and like don't want to touch it, and there's other brands that might want to dive in deep.
Yeah. It's a great question. I mean, SNL is on NBC, which is all completely driven by brands, by advertising. So I understand why they did what they did. I'm not saying that they did is right or wrong. I mean, they have the right to do what they want to do. But that would be a prime example of ultimately like that's what drives that type of decision. I haven't seen any downturn in advertising on comedians' podcasts. Bill says all kinds of crazy things. Well, I don't think they're crazy, but he says all kinds of things.
Sure.
He says a lot of stuff.
Entertaining.
And some of those things offend some people, but he has obviously no loss of support from advertisers, because ultimately they like what he's doing. They like his voice, and he engages with audiences really well. People are behind him. So
no, I find it fascinating, and I think one of my and I might be unique in this, but like the late night talk show circuit, I feel like that right there is being broken a little bit, because it's the same stuff hashed over on, like, I can go and change the show and watch a different show, and it's like the same jokes. It's all political stuff, but it's just like, it gets old to me. I want something fresh. And I remember, when Conan first went on, dude, I loved his stuff. He was like quirky and weird and different, and it was just disruptive.
Yeah.
But now it's just like the same old. Like, it's almost like we're being indoctrinated in that aspect. And that's why I find when I look for comedy, I don't look for, broadcast TV type of comedy. I look for people that are up and comers that are just saying the way it is. They're telling about life through their own eyes, through their own lens, and I think that's why I appeal a lot to that on Instagram and also YouTube.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I think, look, I'm a Conan fan. I actually really like the way he gives an interview. But I agree. I think that people need new ways to connect with, and also you got to look at those late night talk shows, and for a lot of the guests, it's ultimately a publicity stopover for
100%.
whatever's going on at that given time. Podcasts can be that as well. But I think that, again, I point to Joe Rogan as just the prime example of a model for that is more and more people are going to take to. I think fans are. I think he hasn't even reached his capacity for
when
the
you can
audience.
get Elon Musk to smoke a doobie on your podcast. I mean, come on.
And sooner or later, Kanye is going to be on there, and they're going to break the internet.
What's interesting though is, with Joe, with his podcast, you wouldn't even know that he's a comic.
Yeah.
He's just a really good
I had no idea that he was a comic, but I'm like, this guy's actually pretty funny.
I knew him from Fear Factor.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing. Think about that. Like with his trajectory of his career, he could be doing all kinds of things, whatever he wanted to do. But Joe's a guy, and Bill is very much of the same mindset of, I don't need to fall into the format that was been set for me by this industry. I don't need to check the boxes and say, okay, I'm working on this show. Now I'm going to get my sitcom. I'm going to get my sitcom. I'm going to do a feature film, and I'm going to become this actor, which is not even tied to the things that I really love doing, which is being a comic. All he wants to do is this podcast, watch a bunch of fights, and do stand up. And he found it. He found it in a way where he's taking complete control over his own career, and he's making the things that he wants to make. It's incredibly exciting.
Right. And that's what I love about this time. It's like, creators can do that. They don't need a massive, team behind them to do it. All they need to do is have great vision, and they got to take that step forward, just like he did. Yeah, 100%.
Well, he is so mainstream.
Yep.
And he's so influential. I mean, any executive meeting I'm in, there's someone in the room that listens or watches to Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
But one thing where it's been frustrating my own personal life, I started doing hot yoga.
Wait, I'm sorry.
No. Like last 2 years.
Hot yoga.
Hot yoga. No.
Hot yoga with
by the way,
I'm flexible.
I remember when this trend started at Ben, by the way.
And I was coming to the office just sweaty. And then there's no way I could pull off.
Do you do the leotard thing and the leggings?
I have yoga pants.
Or is it jeggings?
I have yoga pants and booty shorts. Okay. Yeah. I do both. I was joking. Well,
I can't get that image out of my mind.
So with that said, at the time, when I started, it was like, old hippie guys, and then in a room full of women.
Mm-hmm.
And today, specifically as the last 2 to 3 months, when Joe keeps mentioning that he does hot yoga every day, half of the class are men in their 30s.
Yeah.
And the classes are getting really full now.
Yeah.
And which hot yoga has been a big thing for a long time. Right. But I think he's inspired so many people to into hot yoga as well as MMA. And then, and that's actually my other thing that I like to do now is MMA, not because of Joe.
So why do you think brands are interested in then, right?
Well,
I mean, like that's it.
You want to be inside that content.
Yeah.
It's going to get a return if you're targeting the right audience.
And he's a guy with some hot takes on a lot of different things, you know?
For sure.
I mean, he's not towing the line by any stretch of the imagination.
All the things that, the Adpocalypse was against,
he does.
Joe Rogan does in his content.
Yeah.
When it comes to conspiracies, when it comes to controversial topics,
when
it comes to swearing,
everything's on the table.
Everything.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
But it's been very interesting just to see, that world just continue to develop. And he kind of has led the way for comics where it's not obvious that he's a comic if you just, if you're coming, from the outside in and you're not part of the, the world of comedy, but he does such a good job. He's good at interviewing. He's very intuitive. He's very good at asking questions. And because of his background in stand-up comedy, that's one of those things that probably made him that talented.
I agree. And then here's that comes right back to the point. Like, what does he want to do? He wants to do his podcast and he wants to do his stand-up. So if the podcast is the entry point to the other thing that's probably most important to him, now he just gained additional fans. So when he goes out on the road, he's selling out massive arenas. That's it.
Yep.
I mean, and that he's created his own industry of the industry of Joe. That's what all this
the industry and history of Joe.
So with your company, like what are some great brand deals and collaborations that you guys have done?
Well, we've done some stuff with Ben, which has been amazing. Yeah.
I'm not asking for a plug.
I was like, wait a minute. Like, who do you know at Ben? Used to work there.
Yes, we're actually working on one right now. We have a show called Something's Burning. It's a cooking show with Bert Kreischer. That's always a mess. But we're talking to some brands about tying into this one. We're about to do a showdown between him and Sebastian Maniscalco, a burger showdown. They've been trolling each other on social media, and now we're putting it to the test.
That's awesome.
We've worked with Zillow. We did a whole I wouldn't say campaign. It was just a series of integrations into a certain format. It was really fun. It was fun in multiple levels. I know that the brand was really happy about it. But we took a format that we were currently doing, which is this series with Bill, where he's just driving around town ranting about things, the things he sees. And Zillow came in and said, well, what if we supported it and gave you an additional, we were looking for a new reason for why he was out driving around. So we put Bert in the car with him and they went out sort of talking about real estate in the area and like how much could home prices be. And it just fit. We still did all our regular show. They still talked about a lot of the silly things that they talk about.
Right.
But it was a good vehicle to get them out on the road. So that was really fun. We did an animated series for Callaway Golf where they wanted some original content for their social handles. So we got some comics in a room. We brainstormed some stuff and came out with this thing called Ball and Tea, animated series about a ball and tea. And that's a great example. Like for us, like with everything else, we want to find ways where we can pull comics into the discussion. Shouldn't just be some suits that are deciding exactly what the thing is that they do. And we find that often when it comes to brand creative, it starts with the brand and it moves to their media company or their creative agency, and then over to their digital agency, and then down to their performance agency. And then by the time it gets to the comic, it's just copy on a page. Read this. But to your earlier point, you've got some of the best writers, producers, creators in town right here. As long as there's an adult in the room to kind of keep it on the rails for whatever those brand guidelines are, we can come up with some really compelling things. That's basically been me. But yeah, so for us, we get an opportunity where a brand can engage directly with really great talent, and the talent has opportunity to really engage directly with the brand, which means more capital for a comedian and more compelling creative for everybody.
Yeah. So I've worked on a ton of projects over my career. And one of the keys was if you really want to, punch up a script, it doesn't matter if it's a script about Jesus Christ. It's like, you gotta figure out a way to get some good pacing and make sure there's good timing. And we found that hiring comedians to even look at scripts, even look at, scripts for, whatever it may be, it's just like, oh, you might want to fix this, or you might want to, move this around. And I feel like that is like, that's kind of the hidden gem of entertainment. I know there's a lot of YouTubers right now, big YouTubers that will hire comedians and just have them brainstorm the most outlandish, craziest ideas, and they pull it off.
They're master wordsmiths, and they 100%. Have a real great capacity for the economy of words too. I mean, if you look at what they're doing in their set, it's very well thought out, and they work it and work it and work it in a way to where it's the most impactful collection of words that are going to make you laugh. Right. That's why a lot of these comics that we work with, a lot of stand-up comics, when they're not on the road, are often in writers' rooms.
Yep.
They're writing on television shows all over town.
And what I'm saying is the value isn't necessarily to get people to laugh, but they understand the storytelling aspect and how to pull emotion out of it. Like far, far greater than any other, writer or consultant that we have is like, no, if you want this emotion, here's how you have to lead it. This is how you have to kind of build up to this.
We've done some of that work too. We've done some punch ups on some scripts for some marketing companies, some studios, movie studios as well, for like their marketing campaigns.
Well, it's starting to happen more and more. I mean, I would suggest to anyone that wants to become a copywriter.
Yeah.
You need to go take some, comedy classes.
That's a great point.
I mean, there's a couple of different agencies. There's a company that I've invested in called Harmon Brothers, where all the scripts that they're writing, for brands, are written by comics.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
And they're how many sales have they generated for? I mean, I don't know why I'm asking you. Like
Harmon Brothers.
Yeah, they've generated I think like 150 between 150 and $300 million in revenue.
Oh, it's a lot more than that. I mean, the one that I worked on, Squatty Potty, did $45 million.
Oh my God, Squatty Potty was huge.
1 year.
Yeah,
that was 1 year, and
so
they've done it for
written by comics.
Yeah,
and comics know how to connect with people, know how to storytell, and give something shocking that people are going to remember.
That was a great
engage with.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great. I think there's a lot of opportunity for creators that that kind of gravitate to entertain and like through comedy and so on. I think now is the time. There's so many different mediums, from podcasts to YouTube to Instagram to TikTok. I mean, you choose your platform and you can do it. And I think it's just more, how do you tell that story?
That's right.
Which is really interesting. But there are people watching this that are considering, looking at pivoting or seeing what's coming down the road. What and I'll rephrase it. We had this question earlier, but I want to rephrase it just a little bit differently. What are the things working for you right now as a company? And what does that actually look like? Because I think right now there's a lot of people not knowing where to focus or where to look for that focus. Is there a certain platform that you're getting excited about, and why?
That's really a great question. I think, look, I'd say podcasts as a whole are a great place for people to focus and invest in. I don't think it's even come close to what it's going to be. We actually just announced a partnership that we're doing with Wondery. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Wondery.
Yep.
Just for overall audience development, audience expansion, cross promotion. And that comes back to that point about, like, if you can get these different entities communicating with one another, you can create something really powerful. You have to treat them all as independent brands, but if you can get them working in a system, you're seeing a lot of growth. On the audio side, I think podcasts are really exciting, and on the video side as well. So think about it. Homecoming on Amazon was a podcast.
100%.
Scripted podcast, had a really compelling story. Amazon got excited about it, turned it into a TV show, was really amazing, or I think it was brilliant.
Yep.
TV show, limited series, I don't know what you call it. I think that there's a lot of creativity that's happening in that space that people should be watching and investing in, and seeing other ways that you can turn that into something more. That's a lot of what we're doing right now, is thinking about how can we break new formats in an audio format that can become something more. Is it a book? Is it a movie? Is it a TV show or whatever? But there's a lot of those parameters of audio create a tremendous amount of new creativity. So I know it's kind of boring. It's where we started from, but I think in general, I think in general, Like there's so much more to be done there. So if you're looking to disrupt or if you're looking to create something new, look into a place that's actually started as from something really old. I mean, podcast is basically like old news radio.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time. And it's been a great conversation. And for people that are looking to follow some of your comedians, how can they find you?
Yeah, you should go to allthingscomedy.com. You can find us on Instagram at allthingscomedy. You can check us out on our YouTube page. I don't know how you say that. www.youtube.com/allthingscomedy. I don't know. Definitely follow Bill Burr at billburr.com. Check out Something's Burning. I've got a lot of shows to pitch. Check out Paper Tiger on Netflix.
You know, you're only supposed to have one call to action.
I know. We got a lot. All right.
Let's cut it.
And thanks everybody for coming on. Make sure you subscribe, follow. You know what to do, and we'll see you on the next video.